wake up and realize that shit like,
Hey, how you doing today? Welcome to another episode of Open Door. My name is Chris Harris. I'm going to be your host, your moderator, your guide as we go on this journey and discuss topics concerning men. I hope you had a chance to check out previous episodes of Open Door. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to my production team, who I call the brains behind the operation. Blessed Dream Production is one. Also, Eyes Have Not Seen. Marilyn Akins is another. They keep me on my toes. Sometimes they get on my nerves, but they make sure that this project is perfect. I want to give a shout out to them. Also, before we get started today, I want you to subscribe. If you haven't subscribed yet to Open Door, subscribe. So each time we drop some content, each time we drop an episode, you don't have to go searching for it. It will search for you. Also, you can find me on Instagram. Type in Chris Harris and we can connect with each other. Let's get started. We've been talking about different influences of men. There are certain things, or I would say certain areas that influence us as we become men. And one of the areas of influence is family. We've been dealing with family. The first education that we have in our life is at home, it's our family. We learn our first teachings, our first nuggets when it comes to manhood from our family. I have a topic for you today that I want to discuss because we're dealing with family. Can the failures of the men in our family actually be our success? The men in our family, they failed, but can them falling actually be a blessing for you and I? Think about that for a second. I want to give you an example of something. We've all been children, we've all been kids. And some of you may have had this happen to you before, where your parents told you, don't touch the stove because the stove is hot. And if you touch the stove, you will get burned. You may have had that happen to you before. Now, as a kid, yeah, you heard your parent tell you, don't touch that stove because if you touch that stove, it's hot. It will burn you. You're probably still going to touch the stove because curiosity kicks in as a child. Also, you don't understand the significance of being burned. What is burned to you? You don't understand the pain or the frustration or the discomfort if you get burned by touching that stove. So you're probably going to touch the stove. But your older brother, your older sibling, a cousin, someone older goes before you and they touch the hot stove and they get burned. Now you see the pain that they have by touching that hot stove and getting burned. Now you see the frustration. Now you see the agony. You hear the scream when they touch it because they got burned. So now, because they went before you and touched it and you see it, you say, I'm not going to touch that stove. Before you were going to touch it, but because they went before you, because they failed by touching that stove and got burned, now you're like, oh no, I'm not going to touch that stove. It actually was a blessing for you. You know, when I was a kid, when I was in elementary school, I remember we went on the field trip to the Cook County Jail. Now that I'm an adult, I look back and I say, who goes on a field trip to the Cook County Jail? Who sets up a field trip for jail? You know, you see a kid bringing home a permission slip to go on the field trip. Mom, Dad, we're going on the field trip. Where, baby? To jail. But we had a field trip to the Cook County Jail in Chicago. And I remember us going on this field trip, and they put us in a room with these inmates. And these inmates were screaming at us. They were yelling at us that if we didn't give our life straight, we would end up in the same predicament in the same place as them in jail. It was the Scare Straight program. But they were yelling at us. And they basically were telling us that we failed in life. We made bad decisions in life. And this is the ramifications of it. This is the aftermath that we are in jail. So actually someone there, because they're telling us their story, they went before us and they failed, and we can see it. We can see the aftermath of it. We can see the ramifications of it. So it actually was a blessing to us to get our life straight. It was the Scared Straight program, and it definitely scared me. So I believe wholeheartedly that when it comes to the men in our families who have gone ahead of us, that their failures can be our success. Even when I say it, it sounds so cruel. It sounds so heartless when I say it, but it's the truth. The men who have gone before us, their failures can be our blessing. I wouldn't be the man that I am today if it wasn't for the men who have gone before me and failed. My uncles, my older cousins, even my father, because they failed in a certain area. I saw it, and it actually was a blessing to me. I was raised in a single family household where it was just me, my mother, and my brother. Dad was not in the picture. My dad had alcohol addiction, drug addiction, and it beat him down. And because of the alcohol addiction and the drug addiction, him and my mom got divorced and they were in different homes. So me and my brother went with my mom, and my dad, stayed by himself. But before the alcohol addiction and before the drug addiction, my dad, I would say, had the American dream. He had the wife, he had the children, he had the home, but he allowed alcohol and he allowed drugs to come into his life, and they choked him and they beat him down. He wasn't able to rise. And the ramifications of it is that the house was broken and he suffered from it. He eventually died from alcoholism. So me being around and seeing that, I said he had the American dream. He had the wife, he had the child, the children, and he had the home. But by allowing drugs and alcohol to come in and just ravish his life, I saw it. Not just him, my uncles. I had uncles who had aspiring careers. They had a great future ahead of them, but they allowed drugs to just filtrate their life and just tear them down where they weren't able to rise. So I saw this from my dad. I saw this from my uncles. I had access to drugs in my life. I had access to alcohol in my life, but seeing what they went through and seeing how they fail, it actually made me say, I won't touch alcohol. I won't touch drugs. So their failure actually was a blessing to me in my life. Not just that, even in my marriage, I've been married for some years now. My brother's also married. He's been married for some years now. In our family, we saw the men in our family struggle with marriage. We saw them get married for the wrong reasons. We saw some of my uncles get married just for the reasons of because they wanted money and the woman had money. Different reasons why they got married, but not the right reasons. And the marriage suffered. I had uncles who was married 2 or 3 times because each time the uncle got into the marriage, he got into the marriage for the wrong reasons, not because of love. And each marriage may have lasted a couple of years, and there was divorce. And with marriage, you have family, and we see the effects of marriage on a family. My uncles, my dad, because they got divorced and they weren't around the kids, they weren't able to raise the kids and really be there as fathers to the kids suffered. In my family, my dad wasn't around, so I didn't have him to teach me and be that dad for me like other kids that I knew. On Father's Day, it was horrible because my friends would be celebrating and spending time with their father. I had no one to spend time with on Father's Day. I had no father to teach me how to ride a bike. I had no father to talk about girls. I had no father to talk about sexual intimacy. I had no father to just talk about things that young men would want to talk about because of the different choices that my father made and the struggles that came after that. But because I saw it, because my brother also saw it, we made a vow that that would not be us. We saw their failures and we said their failures will be our success. We both took vows that we will do everything to keep our marriages afloat. We will do everything to keep our marriages solid and strong. And we do everything to keep our families together. Even if our marriages didn't work out, we both made vows that we would be there for our children. We both decided that our children need their father. So even if me and mom break up and we don't make it, that won't stop us from being a father in our children's life. But we saw the failures of the men in our family who had gone ahead of us. And we said that, no, that won't be us. We'll go a different direction. Even in career, I had an uncle. He was so educated, so smart. I have 5 uncles. And by far, he was the smartest. Don't tell anyone I said that because the other uncles may get jealous. But he was the smartest. He was the baby of the uncles, and he was the smartest. Or he is the smartest today. He's still alive today. But he wouldn't wear a suit and a tie. That was his problem. He said, I'm not a suit and tie person. He got a business degree. He got an MBA. There were job openings calling for him. He had so much opportunity. Today, he probably would have been a multi-millionaire. But because he wasn't a suit and tie type of guy, when these opportunities came his way, he passed on them. And I looked at my uncle, even as his nephew, and I marveled at that. I said, you won't take this job as a finance manager, as a comptroller, as a CFO, because you won't wear a suit and tie. That's stopping you from being successful. I will wear a suit and tie and play basketball if it's going to make me successful. I'll wear a suit and tie to bed if it's going to make me successful. My uncle could have been a multi-millionaire right now. It breaks my heart even when I talk about it because he's so gifted, he's so smart. But he allowed doors to close in corporate America because he kept saying, oh, I can't wear a suit and tie. No other opportunities came his way, but those doors closed because he wouldn't wear a suit and tie. I also have a business degree, and I saw his failures, and I said, that won't be me. I would wear a suit and tie. I would wear a suit and tie wherever. I don't have to wear it to the barbecue. I don't have to wear it when I'm hanging with my family. I can just wear it to work. Those who work at McDonald's, they'll wear a uniform to work. Those who work at UPS, they'll wear a uniform to work. You can't wear a suit and tie. You can't adhere to the dress code at your workplace. Someplace that's going to pay your bills, someplace that's going to provide a better living for you, because you said in your mind that I won't wear a suit and tie. I saw that from my uncle. And I saw the aftermath that he struggled financially. He's struggling to today because he wouldn't wear a suit and tie. So I said, I won't do that. I will go a different direction. So his failures were my success. So I believe wholeheartedly that the men in our family, their failures can be our success. I wouldn't be here today, I said. I wouldn't be the man I am today if I didn't see my uncles, my cousins, even my dad who went before me and see them struggle in areas, and it actually deterred me to go a different direction. These men, I always say, fell into the pits of life. There are pits in life. There are potholes. There are different holes that as we go through this journey called life that people can fall in. But as they went before me and I saw them going before me, as they fell into those pits, I saw it and I was able to avoid those pits. That's the key. If you're able to see them fall into a pit, you're able to avoid those same pits that they fell in. You know, I was thinking about this. Jesus died so we can live. He was a sacrifice. Jesus gave up his life and was a sacrifice so we can live. These men in our family who had gone before us, they were a sacrifice for us so we can live. They were a sacrifice so we can live a better life. They were a sacrifice so we can be successful. So now that I'm of age, now that I'm grown, now that I'm mature, I won't mock them. I won't ridicule them. I salute them, because if it wasn't for them falling, if it wasn't for their sacrifice, I wouldn't be who I am today. So don't mock or don't stick down your nose to the men who had gone before you because they failed. But salute them, because it should make you better. It should make you more successful, because you see where they fail at and you go a different direction. There is a scripture in the Bible, Isaiah 24, verse 2. And it says in there, it says that God will give others for your life. Because God loves you and I so much, he will give others up for your life. These men were given up so that I can be successful. There are men who are in your family who were given up. They fell into the pits so that you can avoid the pit. Salute them, celebrate them, because it could have been you. It could have been you. So yes, the men who have gone ahead of us, they are a blessing to us, even their failures, because we can learn from others' success, but we also can learn from their failures. That is all that I have for you today. This is Chris Harris from the Open Door Podcast. Look for another episode dropping, and I hope you have a blessed day.
And don't ever take nothing for granted, man. Hey, you gotta wake up and realize, it seem like things